All right. Good morning, class. I think this is our third discussion for this course. I hope you guys all have been having a good couple weeks. I really hope you guys did good with your research paper that you guys just finished up. I know I surely enjoyed working on it myself. I'm actually going to start with hitting this timer to 9 minutes because for some odd reason, my Google Meets always boots me out. If no one goes ahead and joins when I go ahead and record this. I'm recording again from my room. Look at all of this casino dice and dice that I'm making. I got a 360-degree photo booth back there. A ton of work on my desk because I wasn't here yesterday. I got some more dice in that back corner. I had homecoming. As well as a student government. So we have homecoming in a few weeks. In the next couple of weeks, my room is going to look terrible, but it happens. All right, guys, let me go ahead and share my screen so we can go ahead and delve into today's question. Allow to share screen. Let's see if this goes ahead and works. I'm hoping. It's thinking. There we go. Share this screen. All right. It's just taking a quick little second. There we are. All right, let's get into this week's question here that dealt with size and scale in our third discussion thread. I think the question here discussed the problem of scale and how it factors into a government's ability to effectively operate and meet the needs of its population. And I got to say, I think the first two questions we dealt with were really easy for me to go ahead and grasp and work with. This question is what I've been really working on so much lately. And honestly, I don't think I really still have a very clear, concise answer. But I think I'm getting closer and closer. So hopefully your videos will help me even narrow down my thoughts here even further. So it says the growing divide in society has been based on any demographic one chooses to measure with. And I think that's what we see, today in society, no matter if I want to measure things by religion or ethnicity or, economic, distribution, that there has just been a divide in our society that we've seen. I think that just begs the question of, is our government too large? Okay. Or is the nation too large for our government to go ahead and actually operate? So does this suggest that America has become too large to govern, effectively? And I guess the answer is yeah, no, I don't really know. I think there's definitely some things that go ahead and point to yes, there has been a growth in the government. Maybe it does affect the effectiveness, of its ability to rule. But as a whole, I think the frame makers, okay, the framework in which this nation was formed, really sets out really clear, concise separation of powers. That really, if we get back to, would really benefit today. So let's get into that a little bit. The first way to look at this is by looking through, Livingston's videos this week. He proposes that political order is either natural to man, all right, that, people are just political animals that want to go ahead and strive to live together, or it only works the will of power, through this overreaching large government that, dominates through law. And he really outlines this belief in more of the old view of Aristotle as opposed to Hobbes here, Thomas Hobbes. And basically each differ on the population size of how big, let's say, a republic or a government could go ahead and get. So if we first look at Hobbes, the contender here, Hobbes believed that only out of coercive power by the government will people be free of anarchy, that if they were truly free, if there wasn't a power structure that is going to go ahead and limit their abilities, that it would just be anarchy. And in some ways, of course, that might be right. The government power here he's referring to, though, is a central authority that has absolute authority. And that's not a structure that we are used to or that we necessarily, prescribe to here in America, not this absolute authority of a monarch, of a king. This authority was placed in the hands of what was known as the second body of the king, and that's the power of the office and not of the man. So you might have the individual who, dies, but that power, still stays within the body, all right, of which that king or that monarch is, embodying. It's not necessarily in a person, even though the power can be ruled by one individual, but it's within the office in which they preside. Through Hobbes' system, people all had a purpose, But the purpose really seldom had to do with one another. And doing a lot of work here with Aristotle through this course, I mean, that's not what Aristotle believed. Aristotle believed that everybody should be working together, belonging almost to the state, in a way that they should work to benefit one another. All lived under one state. They all lived under the same set of rules, but seldom did they work together for the good of the people. It's going to be the views of Hobbes, that there's no common culture, there's no common identity, going to be shared, as people were just truly individuals, though, that were ruled over harshly. All right. Naturally, like-minded groups coalesce, but did so under the control of the crown and only having liberty so long as the sovereign office allowed it. I think that was a really interesting point that was made this week. That these groups, gangs, these, guilds, whatever you might have, are allowed to come together under this second body of the king, but only as far as the king would allow it. As far as he was silent on the matter. I did some more research this week and looked into Hobbes's Leviathan, and he mentions because such limitations is not necessarily easy. Basically, it's not really easy to go ahead and put limits on what groups can form and which ones can't, or perhaps possible to be described in writing. The ordinary laws common to all subjects must determine what the representative may lawfully do in all cases, whether or where the letters are silent. The letters are silent, referring to, like, the king and the laws, all right, not necessarily having, I shouldn't say jurisdiction, because they have jurisdiction over everything. But they might not have spoken out and saying, hey, this group cannot form, or these group of people cannot do this, or these people are allowed to do this. So it kind of leaves up, that question to the individual. Do they go ahead? Are they following law? Are they doing what they're supposed to? Okay. In this factor, is the king going to go ahead and shut them down at any minute? And that's not necessarily a system that anybody wants to live under. To Hobbes, the state could grow large, though. All right, bringing it back to the initial question, due to the power of the absolute authority to rule through law and to stop the masses from descending into anarchy. But like we just seen on the last slide, but at what cost? Through this absolute rule of power. On the other hand, you had Aristotle, all right, who promoted a republican tradition that resisted that second body of the king. All right, republican tradition began to challenge that monarchical tradition, of that absolute authority. To Aristotle, the state should remain small, all right, large enough to defend themselves in war, mind you, but not too large, to where all their neighbors get jealous and they actually want to go ahead and try to take it over themselves because they want to go ahead and obtain that land. I mean, Aristotle did really mention that he wanted these republics to stay small, all right, for those reasons, among others. Going further, I looked at some other articles this week, Between Polis and Empire by Mary Dietz, illustrates this same concept. She's going to go ahead and say that the problems of urban population and excessive size are of particular concern in Politics 7, all right, where, how his book is broken down, 7. Questions of urban growth and the expansion of the populations are especially pressing because in cities where the population is overly large and the mass is so strengthened, the distribution of offices and honors devolves into guesswork, that the government really can't, represent the people because they don't really know who the people are because it's too large. In such huge places full of boundless encounters and collisions, foreigners and resident aliens are able to melt undetected into a crowd, eventually reaching a point where it cannot actualize as a constitution and therefore it cease to be a city at all or a polis at all, okay, according to Aristotle. And we go a little further this week. We have Forrest McDonald, in our reading this week. He really brings this question between Hobbes and Aristotle into the modern day American philosophy by looking at the Constitutional Convention of 1787, where the goal was the reallocation of powers, given more power to the federal government, and obviously the pushback from that from the states, okay, as they really wanted to resist that extra push. Looks like my time is going to elapse here, all right? So I'm going to set this and reset this. I just want to go in just to make sure my my meeting feels like we're doing okay. All right, it is still there. All right, we'll see if it still likes me. All right, we'll go back here. Ultimately, though, it was creating something entirely new. Even though it gave some more powers to the federal government, something new was entirely created. The new American government was neither a centralized national authority, okay, nor a confederation of sovereign states. It was kind of a mixture of both. And this constitutional convention was dominated by the Federalist views and the Anti-Federalists. So let's look at the Anti-Federalists first. As the country grew, some believed that the remote wilderness that was acquired. Okay, so let's say if you got like, claiming Canada, not Canada, Florida, the Louisiana territory. All right, a lot of people thought that that would only hurt the state economic development, as a lot of the federal funds was going to go to build up these areas, and it was put forth to keep these provinces in the control of the central government with no opportunity for statehood, and just keeping the states, those original 13 that were created initially. The Anti-Federalists thought that Republican forms of government were suitable only to small territories and among relatively homogenous people, not this growing large nation of all these diverse different people. Only a small republic could maintain obedience to its laws, make government responsible to the people, and inculcate, okay, the people with Republican virtue. They think as a nation got larger and larger that more states, more territory would make it too hard to rule. They wanted to amend the Articles of the Confederation that were created. They wanted to create a Bill of Rights, all right, but they really wanted to keep a lot of power within the state's hand and not let it grow too overly large. Where the Federalists, on the other hand, they countered this. Let's see here. I think I got a little beep on my end. Let's see. I am still here. Stay in call. All right, good. Now I won't get kicked out. All right, the Federalists counter, over the centuries, however, the science of politics has received great improvements. Okay, the ancients, if we look back to Aristotle saying republics can only exist in a small, framework, the ancients knew nothing or knew but imperfectly about various principles that were now well understood, such as separation of powers, checks and balances, court composed of judges holding their office during good behavior, the representation of the people and the legislator by deputies who they elected. Madison argued it was democracies that met in person. And by meeting in person, all right, they needed to be constrained by that size. But we're not a true democracy, all right? Republics acted through elected agents and therefore could grow larger, according at least to Madison, in these Federalists. So the outcomes ultimately, the states retain the powers of Aristotle's polis. I mean, that's what comes out of this convention, that the state still retains power almost as Aristotle would have in these city-states. They could punish those who committed crimes, dictate matters of health, morals, justice, safety. They could care for the public welfare of the people, and they had unlimited police power. But the union, the overall central government, providing for the common defense, ensuring domestic tranquility, promoting the general welfare, the securing the citizenry of its rights, life, liberty, property, were the allocations of powers among the branches of the central government. And it also was part of the state governments as well. I mean, it was this blend. It wasn't, all or nothing, all Confederate states' rights, not all national government, but the blending of the two. And that's how America was unique. So my conclusions here, what do I pull from this? The country was never meant to be one republic. It was never meant to be 13, but a multitude of them. For the United States was a nation composed of several thousand communities, each of which exercised virtually absolute powers over its members through two traditional institutions, okay? And I am pulling this, guys, from our readings this week, the militias and the juries. And we kind of, morph this into other things today, but on a day-to-day basis, at least during the conventional times, it was the militias, not the army of the United States, who protected public safety. It was the juries and the local juries, not the president, not the state governors, who enforced the laws. And it was the juries of not either judges or legislators who spoke authoritatively as to what the law was. You're looking at so much government on a local level. Okay, that gets some powers from the state. All right, that kind of goes ahead and receives them from, the federal level, and how they each have a separation of those powers. So even though there is a multitude of different communities, the communities in which the people live have the autonomy, all right, to in some way rule themselves. And so does the states, and so does the federal government. The nation is one of blended powers at national and federal levels, with checks and balances, a distribution of powers, different ways of choosing officials who all serve for different times. They all have different term lengths, all to prevent a majority rule. All right. We have electoral college for a reason. Okay. So that we do not, evolve or devolve into a majority tyranny. The Constitution itself allowed for pluralism. The Constitution has the ability to change over time as the times and the situation demands. Although distrust of the government and of the outgroups in society seems to be at an all-time high. I think today we can see that. There is a huge distrust of government. There's a lot of distrust of people outside of one's individual group, those outgroups. I think that could be seen as an all-time high. It's though very prudent for people to remember, the purpose behind the different layers of our federation and to study the Constitution. I mean, the government has grown larger. Some people say, from the New Deal forward, there's a lot of arguments even before that time. The central government has grown larger, but in the original framework of our nation, if I look at the preamble here, we, the people of the United States, not the government, but the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote for general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and posterity, to ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States of America. This is ordained through the people, all right, and not through some overall overreaching power that we have no say over. We have say in our government. We get to dictate that government, and then if we're looking at that from the federal level, I also put in here the 10th Amendment, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution. All right, our Constitution dictates this, nor prohibited by the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. The states still have power. The federal government has power, to ensure that the states do have power. Yet the government has grown larger. Have we grown too large to govern this nation? If the government continues to grow too large, I think that's a possibility. But if we go ahead and we study our Constitution, if we study our history and the way that the founding fathers, directed this Constitution to be able to evolve, to be able to, have that checks and balances, to behave, able to have power on a local level, on a, state level, on a national level, I want to say no. So let me go ahead and get out of this. I do have a couple pages here for my bibliography. All right, let me go back into here. Stop presenting. There is my beautiful face yet again. I got another minute left on my timer. Hopefully that helps. I hate to be, on the fence. I think if we get back to what our founding documents are, if we get back to our Constitution, if we get back to, what makes us America, what made us so unique, we're not this, overall reaching central authority. We are not just simply a confederation of states either. We are a mixture of the two. And if we remember that, if we study that, if we get back to that, I think we can go ahead and continue the prosperity that we have and not devolve into an empire, tyrannical majority rule, what have you. Well, guys, this has been an amazing class. I can't wait to watch all of your videos this week. This has been, a fascinating 8 weeks of study. I look forward to commenting on what you guys have. And, thank you all for helping, put my, understanding into the forefront here. I thank you for helping me understand, these thought-provoking questions. You guys have all been instrumental in that. So have a blessed week, guys. I'll talk to you soon.